You rehearse what you're about to say before speaking. You check people's reactions while you're talking. And after the conversation ends, you replay it in your head, wondering if you said something wrong. You remember the exact tone someone used. You notice when a reply feels slightly shorter than usual. You start adjusting what you say next time so you don't make the same mistake. At first, it feels like you're just being thoughtful, careful, socially aware. But something deeper is happening. Your decisions slowly stop coming from what you actually believe. They start coming from what you think other people will approve of. You soften opinions before speaking. You laugh when something wasn't actually funny. You say yes when you meant no. And slowly, without noticing it, your life starts moving in directions that were never fully chosen by you. The most dangerous part is that approval never really satisfies the system that is searching for it. Even when people like you, the mind keeps scanning. Did that sound weird? Did I offend them? Did they actually mean that compliment? If this pattern runs long enough, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. You stop asking what you believe and start asking, what will they think? Your identity slowly begins reorganizing itself around reactions instead of values. And when that happens, approval becomes your compass. Welcome to Indexing Minds. Here we examine how the mind builds patterns beneath everyday behavior and how those patterns quietly shape the way we live our lives. In this video, we're going to understand why the human brain cares so deeply about what other people think. We'll look at how this instinct slowly turns into people-pleasing and why constantly seeking approval can quietly take control of your decisions. More importantly, you'll learn a practical way to loosen the grip that other people's opinions can have on your life. To understand this pattern, we need to start with something fundamental about the human brain. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Being accepted by your tribe meant protection, shared resources, and cooperation. Being rejected meant isolation. And isolation, in many environments, meant danger. Because of this, the brain evolved a powerful monitoring system that constantly scans the social environment. At its core, this system is asking a very simple question. Am I accepted? When people smile, agree with us, or show approval, the brain releases chemicals that signal safety. But when we sense disapproval, even subtle disapproval, something else happens. The brain becomes uncomfortable. It tries to correct the situation. It tries to restore harmony. In ancient environments, this system helped humans survive. But in modern life, the same system can become overactive. Instead of responding occasionally, it starts running all the time. You start noticing every pause in conversation, every facial expression, every slight shift in tone. This is called social self-monitoring. And when it becomes strong enough, your attention begins shifting away from what you want to express and toward how you are being perceived. Over time, the brain begins adjusting your behavior automatically. You predict reactions before speaking. You soften opinions to avoid friction. You avoid topics that might create tension. You mirror other people's attitudes to keep the conversation smooth. On the surface, this looks like kindness. It looks like cooperation. But internally, something else is happening. You begin taking responsibility for everyone's comfort. You start managing other people's emotions. And that's where the pressure begins. Because this responsibility is impossible to fulfill. People think differently. They interpret things differently. What one person appreciates, another person might criticize. So if your decisions depend on universal approval, your mind enters a constant negotiation. You start calculating reactions before acting. Conversations feel like performances. Decisions feel heavier because every choice carries a question. How will this be received? When approval arrives, the relief is temporary. But when disapproval appears, the mind treats it like a mistake, something that needs correction, something that needs fixing. And slowly, disapproval starts feeling like failure. This is the moment when people-pleasing quietly takes over. You begin editing yourself in real time. You hold back thoughts. You agree when you don't mean it. You prioritize harmony over honesty. And eventually, even small interactions begin to feel mentally exhausting. You send a message, then analyze it afterward. you replay conversations hours later. You remember things you said days ago because the brain is constantly scanning for approval signals. Breaking this pattern does not mean ignoring people, and it doesn't mean becoming insensitive to relationships. Humans are social creatures. We naturally care about each other's opinions. The goal is not to eliminate social awareness. The goal is to rebalance the system so that approval informs your decisions instead of controlling them. The first shift begins with something simple. Step 1, pause before adjusting. When the mind senses disapproval, it immediately tries to correct itself. But instead of instantly adjusting your behavior, pause. Give yourself a moment. Ask yourself whether the reaction you noticed was actually real, or whether your mind interpreted something neutral as judgment. This pause interrupts the automatic approval-seeking reflex, and it gives your thinking brain time to return. The next shift involves understanding the difference between two things people often confuse. Step 2, separate approval from respect. Approval often comes from agreeing with people, from accommodating them, from avoiding tension. But approval is unstable because it depends entirely on other people's preferences. Respect works differently. Respect grows when people see consistency between what you believe and how you act. Approval may feel comforting, but respect builds self-trust. The third shift is about rebuilding internal decision-making. Many approval-seeking patterns exist because people skip an important step. Instead of asking what they believe, they immediately start predicting reactions. So the next step is simple. Step 3, ask what you actually think first. Before worrying about how something will be received, ask yourself what you genuinely believe. What feels right to you? What aligns with your values? Once your perspective is clear, then you can decide how to communicate it. This restores balance. Self-clarity first, social consideration second. Another important step is learning to tolerate disagreement. Step 4, tolerate disagreement. Disagreement does not mean rejection. It simply means different perspectives exist. But when people-pleasing is strong, the brain interprets disagreement as danger. Learning to stay calm during small moments of friction teaches the brain something important. Connection can survive disagreement. Relationships do not collapse just because opinions differ. Finally, there is a realization that reduces much of the pressure people feel when speaking or acting. Step 5, remember the spotlight effect. Most people are not analyzing you nearly as much as you think. Everyone else is also thinking about themselves, their own words, their own impressions, their own concerns. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. We tend to overestimate how much attention other people are paying to us. When this becomes clear, the imagined audience that approval-seeking reacts to begins to shrink. And when these shifts start happening, something interesting begins to change. The constant scanning for approval becomes quieter. Conversations feel lighter. Decisions become clearer because instead of reacting to everyone else's expectations, your actions begin coming from your own values. You may still care what people think. That's human, but their opinions stop defining your direction. Instead of negotiating your identity moment by moment, you begin expressing it naturally. This is Indexing Minds. Today, we explored why the human brain cares so deeply about social approval, how that instinct can gradually turn into people-pleasing behavior, and how constantly scanning for acceptance can quietly redirect your life away from your own values. If this helped you understand your patterns more clearly, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next index.